Harmony was born in June 2014. At the time, her father was in prison before his release in 2015. The little girl was removed from her mother's care at least 3 times in the first 4 years of her life, according to WMUR. In July 2018, the Department of Child Services removed her from her mother's custody due to her drug addiction and placed Harmony in a foster home. Then, in February 2019, Mr. Montgomery was granted custody of Harmony before a review of his home was completed by the New Hampshire Division of Children, Youth, and Families. While Ms. Soray lived in Massachusetts, Mr. Montgomery lived in New Hampshire, so Harmony was moved to a new state to live with her father. The last confirmed sighting of Harmony was on 11 September 2019, when Manchester police officers were called to her father's home on 77 Guilford Street in Manchester. Harmony was living with her father as well as his wife Kayla Montgomery and their children at the property at the time. Law enforcement said the last police call out to the property was in October 2019, but later confirmed they had muddled the dates and it was actually September. Police interviews and statements from various family members also offered a timeline for her last known sighting. Ms. Soray told police she had not been able to contact her daughter since they spoke on a video call in April 2019. After that, she said Mr. Montgomery cut off all contact between her and her daughter. Mr. Montgomery first claimed to investigators he last saw his daughter around Thanksgiving 2019, claiming that Ms. Soray had picked her up from Manchester to take her to live with her. Prosecutors later dropped that welfare fraud charge and added 3 new charges, 1 count of theft by deception and 2 misdemeanor charges of welfare fraud. She pleaded guilty to 2 of those charges in November 2022 and reached a plea deal with the prosecution in exchange for her testimony against her husband. Court documents also show that Ms. Montgomery, who was charged with unrelated theft charges, came forward with information that led to her estranged husband's arrest. Mr. Montgomery was charged with 1 count of second-degree murder for recklessly causing the death of Harmony, falsifying physical evidence for altering, destroying, concealing, or removing the girl's body, abuse of a corpse for unlawfully removing, concealing, or destroying Harmony's body, and tampering with witnesses or informants, which he allegedly did by attempting to coerce Ms. Montgomery to lie to investigators. I do want to again express my deepest sympathies to Harmony's family, friends, and loved ones, Mr. Formella said at a news conference announcing the murder charges. We understand that today's news, while significant for purposes of this investigation, is yet another difficult moment for those who loved Harmony and those who have followed this case. During an interview with detectives, Ms. Montgomery said that Mr. Montgomery had repeatedly punched Harmony in the face on 7 December 2019. After becoming upset with her for having bathroom accidents in the car their family was living in after they were evicted from their home that November. The 48-page probable cause affidavit detailed how Ms. Montgomery told investigators her husband had allegedly delivered sets of 3 to 4 blows with a closed fist to Harmony's face-head on 3 separate occasions over the course of a few minutes that morning. After the final blow, Mr. Montgomery allegedly said, "I think I really hurt her this time. I think I did something." Harmony made a moaning-type noise for approximately 5 minutes and then stopped, Ms. Montgomery told investigators. No one checked on Harmony or stopped to get her medical attention, Ms. Montgomery told investigating officers. Instead, the family allegedly continued their ride to a Burger King before returning to the apartment complex where they usually parked their car. They remained in the parking lot for 20 minutes before driving off again. In a second interview, Ms. Montgomery admitted she and Mr. Montgomery used heroin and fentanyl during this period. After that, the Montgomerys moved into a shelter house where the bag began to leak. Mr. Montgomery reportedly put the duffel bag into a trash bag and stowed it inside a vent shaft in the ceiling of their room. Police officers later removed the entire section of the ceiling, including the vent, and found stains consistent with signs of decomposition. Ms. Montgomery gave detectives 2 different versions of how Mr. Montgomery then transferred Harmony's body to a much smaller maternity tote bag, which would not likely fit Harmony's body unless it was dismembered or grossly distorted. She claimed that in spring 2020, Mr. Montgomery rented a U-Haul truck to dispose of Harmony's body during the middle of the night. When he returned the next morning, he allegedly said words to the effect of "It's done." Questions arose over how a little girl could not be seen for more than 2 years without any action being taken by authorities. Multiple family members have said they raised concerns for Harmony's safety with New Hampshire's Department of Children, Youth and Families, DCYF, in the 2 years that authorities weren't searching for her. Ms. Soray accused authorities of failing her daughter. She said she made multiple attempts to report concerns to Child Services. On November 18, 2021, she contacted Manchester Police saying she believed her daughter was missing. Police officers contacted the New Hampshire Division for Children, Youth and Families, DCYF, about the location of the missing child. Then, on 27 December of that year, the DCYF reported that it was also unable to locate Harmony. Manchester Police announced a search was launched on 31 December 2021. Ms. Soray was so convinced that her daughter was in trouble that she sent emails to the Manchester Mayor's office begging for help in finding the girl. "Please, I'm begging for help in finding my daughter," she wrote on 29 December 2021. Ms. Soray said Mr. Montgomery had never enrolled their daughter in school and that she has missed important doctor's appointments she's had since a baby due to a disability in her eye. The emails were sent just 2 days before police finally reported Harmony missing. As well as the repeated attempts to raise the alarm, the family was well known to Child Services. Records released showed that police officers were called to the Guilford Street home at least 10 times between February 2019, when Mr. Montgomery got custody of Harmony, and when she was last seen in the fall. Reports range from claims of domestic disturbances to animal welfare and concerns about the living conditions in the home. The DCYF was notified about some of the incidents. A neighbor told The Independent in 2022 that it was a bad situation at the property, describing lots of people living there at different times, adults seen arguing in the street, junk left piled up in the yard, and the electricity being switched off at one point. "We didn't intermingle with them as it was a bad situation," she said. "There was lots of different people living there, piles of junk in the driveway, junk outside. The electricity was turned off and they ran the generator all summer with the wiring running through the window." The neighbor said the Montgomerys were basically squatting at the home when it had fallen into foreclosure, and Mr. and Ms. Montgomery were refusing to leave. She said she went away for the Thanksgiving holidays in 2019 and returned to find the family had finally packed up and moved out. This coincides with when Mr. and Ms. Montgomery claimed they last saw the little girl. An independent investigation was launched by the Massachusetts Office of the Child Advocate after Harmony was moved from Massachusetts into the custody of Montgomery in New Hampshire in February 2019. After the case came to light, officials in New Hampshire and Massachusetts passed the blame between each other. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker responded to the criticism saying he felt his pain, but said he wanted to wait to see the results of the independent review by the Massachusetts Office of the Child Advocate. The report later placed the blame on state agencies for failing to consider Harmony's needs above her parents' rights to her custody. The central and most important finding in this investigation and report is that Harmony's individual needs, well-being, and safety were not considered on an equal footing with the assertion of her parents' rights to care for her in any aspect of the decision-making by any state entity. Maria Director, Office of the Child Advocate, said in the report, "When children are not at the center of every aspect of the child protection system, then the system cannot truly protect them." This report describes the ripple effect of miscalculations of risk and an unequal weight placed on parents' rights versus a child's well-being. Mr. Baker responded to the report a day later by saying everybody failed in this case and pushed a bill that included $50 to recruit, train, and pay guardian ad litems within the Massachusetts court system. There are a lot of lawyers who are in the room on this case, and none of them at the end of the day had just Harmony Montgomery's interest as a primary concern, Mr. Baker said. Prior to the alleged murder of his daughter, Mr. Montgomery has a history of violence and a long criminal record, including convictions for shooting a man in the head in a drug deal just 6 months before Harmony was born. He was also convicted in 2010 for attacking 2 women at gunpoint. It has also emerged that Montgomery is a suspect in the cold case murder of a 28-year-old man in Lynn, New Hampshire, back in February 2008. Darlene Guzman was found shot in the chest in the parking lot of the former White Hen convenience store in Lynn's Austin Square on the night of 10th of February 2008. He was pronounced dead in hospital. Mr. Montgomery, who was 18 at the time, and two members of his family, who were not named, have been the focus of the murder investigation since day one. The three family members had been in contact with the victim earlier that day and planned to meet with him at the convenience store before the meeting culminated in gunfire, according to the source. No one has ever been charged with Guzman's murder, but the source said Mr. Montgomery remains the focus of the investigation to this day. In June 2023, Mr. Montgomery was found guilty of all counts in his trial relating to stolen weapons in 2019. He was sentenced to 32.5 to 75 years in prison. The girl's remains have still never been found. The Guilford Street property was the focus of much of the search, with investigators seen in the home in the backyard for multiple days. However, Manchester police said the search concluded there. It is not clear if anything of interest was uncovered, and no other locations for searches have been identified. At the time of Harmony's disappearance, she lived with her father, stepmother, and the couple's two children. Harmony's mother, Crystal Sori, had lost custody of her daughter due to substance abuse problems. When authorities finally began searching for the missing child in December 2021, they were 2 years behind the search. Then, just 6 months into the missing persons investigation, the little girl's father was arrested. He was later charged with second-degree murder, tampering with witnesses, falsifying evidence, and abuse of a corpse. In an affidavit for his 2022 arrest, authorities said that Mr. Montgomery's wife, Kayla Montgomery, came forward, alleging her husband fatally struck Harmony in the head when she had an accident in the car. Mr. Montgomery then allegedly placed Harmony's body in a cooler, which he then snuck into his workplace freezer, before disposing of her remains at an unknown location in March 2020. Mr. Montgomery, 34, has pleaded not guilty to the charges and has maintained his innocence. With jury selection getting underway in Mr. Montgomery's trial this week, here's everything we know about the disturbing and unsolved case. The rewards for information about Harmony disappearance has topped $150,000.